Welcome back, children. Civics, chapter number 8, Confronting Marginalization. Introduction. In the last chapter, you read about the discrimination and inequality issues experienced by two different groups. Even though they do not have much power in society, these groups have struggled, fought, and protested against the insulting group. They have adopted different strategy in order to overcome this situation in this long struggle. Economic upliftment, religious solace, education and self-improvement are few ways through which the minorities are trying to improve their social condition. In this chapter, the students would get to know about the way minorities have challenged the existing inequalities that they have had to face. Muslims, Dalits, Adivasi, and people of other marginal communities have always maintained that since they are citizens of the country according to the constitution, they possess equal rights which should be respected by others. The chapter explains how marginalized communities can take the help of the constitution in order to win their struggles. It states how the rights take the form of laws to protect certain groups from exploitations. We will also see how the government has been making different efforts in formulating policies so that these minority groups could be uplifted. Invoking fundamental rights. The Constitution of India has certain principles on whose basis the country is democratic today. The fundamental rights are another part of the Indian Constitution that are available for every Indian citizen on an equal basis. The marginalized communities of India are drawn to such rights in two forms. First, as they insist on the fundamental rights provided to them by the Indian Constitution, they force the government of India to recognize the cases of injustice that they are facing. Second, they have made a pressure on the government to enforce such laws. There have been several instances in the recent times which have forced the Indian government to recognize the injustice carried out against those who are marginalized. In this way, they also kept the spirit of fundamental rights upright. The Article 17 of the Constitution abolishes untouchability. It means that no one can force the Dalits from entering temples, educating themselves. If they face untouchability, the government would not allow this. It is a punishable crime now. The word Dalit means broken. It is used by different groups to highlight different discrimination faced by them. The Constitution consists of several sections that strengthens the argument against untouchability. Article 15 states that a person can't be discriminated on the basis of caste, sex, religion, or gender. The Dalits have taken the help of this article whenever justice was denied to them. With this law, the Dalits can invoke these fundamental rights when they feel that the majority community or even government has treated them badly. With this law, they have been successful in drawing the government attention to the constitutional laws so that they could get justice. The minorities have particularly drawn upon rights to cultural and education rights and freedom of religion. Minority religions such as Parsis and Muslims have the right to be the guardians of their respective cultures and contents. They also have the right to take decisions to preserve their culture. By granting different forms of cultural right to this community's constitution, body has granted cultural justice to them. It is done to ensure that the cultural or minorities is not dominated or wiped out by the majority of communities. Laws for the marginalized group. The government of India has come up with different laws to protect the Indian citizen. There are different ways through which action is taken to protect the marginalized sections. There are several policies and laws. There are various ways through which the schemes or policies emerge, like by undertaking surveys or by setting up government committees. These policies are promoted by the government so that these specific groups can get opportunities. Promoting the rights of Dalits and Adivasis. In order to implement the constitution, both central and state government create schemes which are implemented in tribal areas or places where Dalit population resides. For example, the government provides subsidized or free hostel facility for those students belonging to Dalit or Adivasi communities. Through this, they can get educational facilities which are not available in their areas. Apart from providing few facilities, the government has also implemented a few laws in order to prevent equality present in the system. One such policy is reservation, which is highly significant for this people. In educational institutions and government of job seats are reserved for the candidates of marginalized sections. In our society, the marginalized people hardly got any opportunity to learn and work. They also could not develop new skills. Their basic rights were denied for centuries. Therefore, it is the duty of democratic government so that they can rise high. How reservation policy works. The state as well as central governments have maintained their own list of the castes and communities that fall under scheduled caste, ST and OBC, that is the scheduled tribes, and other backward class, that is OBC. Most backward caste, etc. The people who fall under this category are issued caste certificates. They have to produce these certificates while they apply for admission in educational institutes or government jobs. If that particular caste is identified with the least, they are granted the reservation benefit. The government decides cut-off marks of different tests for professional educational institutes such as engineering, medical, management, etc. Those marginalized students who have scored over this cut-off are granted admission. They are also offered scholarships so that they can continue their education without any hindrance. The Scheduled Caste and the Scheduled Tribes. Prevention of Atrocities Act 1839. After the Dalits and the other marginalized communities started making demands from the government to seriously consider the ill treatments and harassment by them, the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act was framed in 1989. Dalits and marginalized communities had to face harassment at every stage, although such treatment existed for a long time. However, it took a violent form during the 70s and 80s. After facing violent treatment, a number of assertive groups from Dalit community, especially from South India, came ahead in order to assert their right. They refused to perform several caste duties and demanded that they should be treated equally. Due to this, people from upper caste started unleashing violating practices against those who demanded their rights. Despite being prohibited in the constitution, untouchability was practiced in the country in a hidden manner. Dalits highlighted this practice and demanded for new laws to punish those who practice atrocities against them. Similarly, during the 70s and 80s, the Adivasi community organized themselves to demand equal rights and to demand that their lands that were taken away from them should be returned to them. Even they had to face violence from those who were in power. Due to the nature of violence faced by the Adivasis, there is a long list of punishable crimes listed under this act. Few of these crimes are too horrible to even think about. Through this act, people came to know about what dreadful deeds human beings can perform. Apart from awarding punishment to the culprits, these laws also influence the way people think and act. Several levels of crimes are distinguished by this act. Firstly, modes of humiliation which are morally reprehensible and physically horrific are listed. It seeks to punish those accused who force a person from SC or ST to eat or drink any obnoxious that is ugly or inedible them. Forcibly removes clothes of those from SC or ST community, paint their face or body, parade them naked, commits any other act which is derogatory to the dignity of a human. Secondly, the actions which disposes Adivasis and Dalits from their meager resources or forces them to perform slave labor. The act punishes anyone whose wrongfully and forcefully cultivates or occupies any land which was allotted or person belonging to SC or ST or tried to get the land transferred which was allocated to the latter. The Act also recognizes crimes of specific kind committed against Dalit or tribal women. It can punish anyone who uses any kind of forces or assault against women from tribal or Dalit groups with an intent to dishonor her. The scourge of manual scavenging. The practice of removing animal and human waste or excreta with the help of basket, tin, plates and brooms from dry latrines and disposing it by carrying it on heads is the process of manual scavenging. A person who is employed to do this job which is filthy in nature is called manual scavenger. Mainly young girls and women from Dalit communities are employed to do this job. A data from Safai Karamchari Andolan based in Andhra Pradesh, where these are over 1 lakh Dalit people who are employed to do this job across the country. They work in around 26 lakh private and community dry latrines. These manual scavengers are forced to work in unhygienic and subhuman conditions. Due to this, they end up getting serious health hazards. They also suffer from skin, eye, and respiratory infections apart from suffering from serious gastrointestinal system. They are awarded low wages for their work. Those from urban municipalities are paid rupees 200 per day and those who work privately are paid very less. The Pakis in Andhra Pradesh, Bangis in Gujarat, Sikhalyas in Tamil Nadu are some of the caste of manual scavengers. They have to face untouchability even though our constitution prohibits it. They are forced to live in settlements located at a village's outskirt area. They are not given accessibility to public water facilities, temple premises, etc. Employment of manual scavengers and construction of dry latrines Prohibition Act was passed by Government of India in 1993. This law prohibits dry latrines, constructions and employment of manual scavengers. In 2003, 13 organizations along with 7 manual scavengers filed a PIL in the Supreme Court. They argued that the manual scavenging process still exists, especially in government undertakings such as railways. These petitioners sought to enforce their fundamental rights. In its observation, the court found that the cases of manual scavenging had increased since 1993 law. The Supreme Court directed the centre and the state government to verify this fact. Within 6 months, if the practice existed, the government department was asked to announce time-bound programs to rehabilitate and liberate these people. In December 2013, the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and the Rehabilitation Act was formed. Adivasis demand of 1989 Act. According to the Adivasis, this Act of 1989 is important for them. They often refer to whenever they need to defend the land that was traditionally theirs in the past. Whenever the authorities try to displace the Adivasis forcibly from their lands, the latter always show their willingness in the process. The activists working for the tribals have often demanded that strict action should be taken against those who encroach upon the lands belonging to the Adivasis forcefully. According to this activist, this law merely confirms what the constitution promised to the tribals. Non-tribal people can't buy or sell the lands which belong to the tribal people. The constitution also states that if the tribal lands have been forcibly taken away, then the tribals have the right to repossess the land. And Adivasi activist Miss Sikejanu had earlier pointed out that in most of the cases it is the state government from different regions that takes away the tribal land forcefully. It grants permission to non-tribal encroachers in form of paper mills, timber merchants, etc. They in turn evict tribals from their own lands forcibly. In this process, they declare those forests as sanctuaries or reserved areas. Even if the authorities evict the tribals from the land, they should at least be granted compensation. Government should introduce policies for residence, livelihood, occupation, etc. for those tribes so that they could be rehabilitated. Conclusion. This chapter ideally depicts this fact that if the policy or law exists on paper, it does not mean that it has been implemented well. People need to come ahead and initiatives in order to translate these policies into principles so that the actions of their leaders along with fellow citizens could be guided. Thank you.